Ready, Tammy Faye? I'd like to call the preliminary hearing to order with Polk County Ditch number 39. Today we will have Jerry Pribula and his son Nick do the report. We'll hear Jerry out. We'll open it up to the board for comments. At that time we'll open it up to the public. And we'd like to have a chance for everybody to get heard, so we'll let Jerry take it away.
And I want to remind them that if anybody wants to speak.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to speak, please state your name for the record so that we have documentation when we go back through the process of reviewing it.
Okay, I'll start out by, I'm Jerry Pribula, my son Nick, and we were appointed the engineer on the project. And I'm just going to start out with taking you, the preliminary report has already been presented to the board and it's been forwarded on to Bowser. That's the group that oversees all watersheds in Minnesota, and they are responsible for commenting on the preliminary report and making suggestions. So that will be read into the record here too, I believe. But for now, I want to explain the project, and I know everybody in this room knows more about this ditch than I do, but I'm going to try to explain some of the technical things that are going on with it, and basically I'm going to give you a litany of why the project is probably before you. Right now, this is an assessment area for Judicial Ditch 2, which is right here, and the purpose of this is just to orientate you where Ditch 39 is, and this is County Road 65. It runs from the Grand Marais up and down straight east. This is County Road 19, and it turns into 20. Chirac is here. This is the O'Mara Beat piling site, and the original drain was constructed in 1903, and it was constructed from the Marais up to this corner here. After that drain was constructed in 1903, 4 years later, it must not work that well because you can see all the other county drains that are running to the west, to basically outletting into the Marais. This ditch 66 was constructed after all these other ones, and primarily every one of these ditches were built before 1920. And so it was at a time when the valley was starting to become pretty intensely agricultural, and these ditches got built at that time. This ditch was built 4 years after this ditch 39 was built, and at that time it took over 2 miles of, it intersected the alignment of ditch 39, and so what it was trying to do is pull water that was coming from out of the drainage area, basically in the ditch 2 assessment area and the ditch 66 assessment area. So what we're looking at now is improving the drain from the Marais up to the Chirac Road. And so that was what the petition requested. So what I'm presenting you today is what the petition asked for. They were fairly explicit on what they wanted to be considered by the engineer in designing the ditch. So right now, the project is situated south of County Road 65, and when 65 was constructed, the county moved the ditch south when they built the road. So, and the road and the ditch is operated by Polk County. The existing channel has a 5-to-1 in slope off. That's the slope off the county road down, and that has a lot to do with the road requirements. The existing ditch has an 8 to 12 foot bottom. It has a 3-foot back slope, and it primarily doesn't have any buffer strip along the field slide. And so that's the existing condition. The performance of the existing ditch has been problematic, primarily because in the, why don't we go to the LIDAR? And zoom in there a little. The red line is where the improvement ditch will be. The dashed line is the abandoned section of the existing ditch, and this is ditch 66 that intercepts on, and this is the O'Mara bead piling site. So starting from the west end, the bottom, right now the bottom 4.3 miles, or in other words, zoom out, Nick. Right from here, which is County Road 66, to the outlet is primarily, it's very flat. The drain flows full during normal, if they have a persistent rainfall events. The adjacent fields don't have any drainage when the ditch is primarily backed up. There's a lot of tile pumps along that section of the drain. A lot of calls come into the watershed complaining about tile pumps running. But they're not the problem. I think the perception of a pump pumping when everybody can't get rid of their water is what it is. It's just a perception. The capacity of these tile pumps are so small that they cannot effectively raise the water surface profile in the legal drain more than an inch, 1 in 300 feet. So that's the impact of that pump running on the water surface of the ditch when it's running full. So it is not really a valid argument to say that the pumps are causing, the tile pumps are causing the problem. They are creating a lot of calls and complaints. Okay, so some of the history of the drain that we're talking about, Polk County maintains it to the legal bottom ditch grade. In 1995, in an effort to get the drain to work better, the county increased the size of the culverts through the mile roads in an effort to think that the capacity would be better and the problem would go away. The net effect of those culverts, they were all installed below grade too, so they were larger and they were below legal grade, and the net result of those culverts, the benefit was really pretty negligible. So that just kind of explains a lot of times there's a lot of complaints. The county ditch engineer at that time, before the petition came in, a group of the landowners along the drain said, well, maybe we don't need an improvement problem, maybe it just needs to be cleaned. The county went out there and made a determination that the ditch was at or below legal grade already, and that so they were not going to do anything as far as doing anything with the cleaning the channel. And in that time period in 1998, the county looked at, from the county standpoint, it's under the county jurisdiction. So the county had a report done in 1998, and the county ditch engineer analyzed the ditches to have the capacity of a somewhat less than a 5-year event. So after the survey to see if the ditch need cleaning, then we met, a lot of you folks in this room met on, I think in Kurt's shop, and we talked about, well, what do we want to do, and that's how, when the petition was formulated and the process began. The petition that was presented meets the requirements, or did, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And it asked for a 10-year design. It states that the in-slopes would be a 5-to-1, which they have to be because it's a county road. It states that the back slope should be 4-to-1 or something close to that. The bottom was left up to the engineer to design, because that was the only variable in there to get capacity going, to calculate. So what the net result of the petition is the bottom 3 miles of the ditch, the grade will be increased to, from here to here, there'll be 3 feet of drop per mile. Can you move over, Nick, now? Move it this way. This is County Road 66. This culvert the culverts that are the new ones that the county put in are 1.5 feet below legal grade. So the grade at this point is going to be the new grade of the ditch. If the channel is improved, there's a box culvert through County Road 66. That culvert is at the correct grade also, so that one won't be lowered, or it won't be adjusted. From there on, going all the way to the end, there is going to be a drop of 6 feet per mile, and right now the condition of the ditch is variable. There's an up and down. The size of the culverts are all 3-foot culverts now, and when the new ditch would be constructed, all the culverts would be, this is where we would start off. The legal drain would start on the east side of County Road 22, and that culvert would be, it is a 36-inch culvert, and it would remain in place as is. The culverts downstream, along with the channel, would be upsized appropriately till you get to County Road 66. That one will stay in place. Each and every mile line road culverts is, when a rainfall event falls greater than the design of the ditch, the intent is every mile road would hold back water, so it would meter the water through the system, and everybody would have the same degree of service. So, and that is one of the, there's a bunch of engineers that are there. I don't think any of you guys got on that committee, but they're called Technical Advisor Committee. They're a bunch of engineers who decided how we should build ditches and how we should control water, and they set this, they set the standard, or they set kind of how we go about designing a ditch. That typically we all design a 10-year ditch, and then when the capacity of the ditch, when the rainfall gets above that, we're supposed to intentionally size the culverts so that the water is slowed down as it moves through the system. So the proposed culvert sizes are sized accordingly. The first culvert immediately downstream will be upsized from what it is now. And it has a lot to do with the new ditch channel will have a higher capacity, and the water will be able to be channeled through the system. The plan that I presented originally had 83 field inlets. There's culverts we usually put in there, the traps to control, keep the water in the legal drain and keep it out of your field. That was viewed as being, there are 83 field ditches, and that's why we proposed that we would put a culvert every place there's an existing field drain. And I think right now, and the intent was to start up high, but we were going to try to limit them probably to 5 per mile on the south side of the ditch. And so we'll work with you folks if the project is constructed, and we'd like to have the number of fieldlets settle in around between 45 and 50. And that would give everybody a field limit at, if you own a quarter section, there would be 2 on your quarter, and then plus there would be 1 on the quarter line. So every mile there would be 5 culverts, and that would be what we'd shoot for. And if it isn't practical, which I know a lot of times it isn't practical, if there's some, and sometimes they would be, like for example right here, there's a lot of water that's entering the drain right here, and that one might even be appropriate to have a larger culvert, even though it, you know, all the other ones are sized smaller and they'll have traps. The project will have some culverts that allow water. They're called Centerline Culverts. They're basically culverts that cross over County Road 65, so the folks to the north can access the ditch. And if you pull it down a little bit, Nick, zoom in here, you can see that there is an effort to get these fields to drain south. And so, you know, I'm sure that we will look at putting culverts in to accommodate the drainage that would be coming probably within a half a mile north of the drain. The ditch will, so those will be some culverts that will be installed, and they will be in the final design. I didn't talk to some folks that have land north of the drain, and they would like to put some, have some culverts installed. In fact, if you pull out a little bit, Nick, being we're talking centerline culverts, pull out more. The water that's coming in, trying to get in the ditch, they're actually trying to get the water to drain south, but they're funneling along the north side of the ditch. And then eventually, they are finding a culvert that's downstream 3 miles or so, and the culverts in there are township road culverts. So there isn't a whole, down on this end, I think a lot of these culverts got put in. If you zoom in, Nick, you'll see some contours again. They were put in by folks who just probably done it, and those culverts have been there for a long time. So the project is designed for a drainage area of 1 mile south of where the ditch is to 1.5 miles. That would be the drainage area, except, pull over, Nick, except on the very end, this area here, the drainage area moves something up like this, and this primarily should drain to 66, and I can bet you it won't. So a lot of times what happens is the water finds its way down here anyway, but that is an area that is, I'm going to talk about quick. The design flow, okay, and so the right-of-way is variable. We're going to purchase enough land to build the ditch and get the 16.5-foot grass strip on the property that it will be purchased by the ditch system to build the ditch. And beyond that, the permanent right-of-way, we require a slope easement, so where we can put the spoil that's coming out of the new ditch onto the field. The black dirt will be removed from the field, first thing, and black dirt will be put back onto the areas where we put the spoil. And we don't talk a lot about money, but we anticipate that the permanent right-of-way would be paid for somewhere around the vicinity of $4,000 per acre, and the temporary easement would be, we would pay $300 an acre. And the intent of the temporary easement payment is to compensate the landowner for 2 years of lost rent. And I don't know what you people rent your land for, but that seems to be a fair and reasonable number. The new ditch is designed, it's designed based on acceptable standards by the technical people that set standards. The section line roads are sized to hold water back, and the intent is that the system is balanced. In other words, people get the same degree of service. In other words, if the capacity of the drain is too small, everybody will stand back and wait for the water to go in. The problem with this particular drain is it was built in a time where it was kind of hard to move a lot of dirt, so on most of the ditches, up and down, north and south of this one, Polk County has improved the bottom 4 miles. They've improved 36, 37, 38, 40 was improved. So what the commonality of all these old drains are is the bottom ends are the problem areas, and this one is no different. This one is not different. It is different a little bit, and so the difference is in the design of this ditch is this ditch here. This is County Ditch 66, and maybe pull out, Nick, so we can zoom in better. Right now, Monday I went out there and I just got a call and I marked, and he says, you got to come see where the water, you got to come, to understand our problem, you need to come see where the water's coming from. Well, this is the Chirac Road. The legal drain 66 is also along this road. It continues out further and it connects on to another existing natural waterway. But this section of 66, this is primarily the main ditch, but this one was added as kind of a lateral. And what it does, it picks up the water that's coming in a natural waterway. Right here, 2 miles to the east of the piling site is where the drain starts. And Monday, which was during a spring runoff event, the water was entering the channel, but it's also pouring out to the north and to the south. So the water was running across, trying to parallel 66, and it was running across the section. It was topping the road here, going to the west. It was topping the road here. And actually there's a 124-inch culvert right here if you zoom in, Nick. And the water was actually going over the road here, and it was going, it was trying to get back into 66. But, so this, and what was filling up is this section right here is where the Chirac Road is, and pull in out, Nick, right there. And in a springtime event, I guess we see a lot of water sitting everywhere, and it's probably not out of the ordinary, and it isn't so quite alarming. But this is not here. This is a summer deal. This is CRP. This is an involuntary holding pond. So when the capacity of the drain doesn't seem to carry the water up to ditch 2, and property like this gets abandoned to CRP for one good reason: can't farm it. It's pretty darn wet. So right now there's 2 36-inch culverts going across the county road here, and there's one here, and there's a 24-inch here. These culverts are meant to allow the water to pass through the highway. They were put in by the highway department, and they were flowing darn good on Monday. So basically the overland flooding is allowed to pass through 3 36-inch culverts, one there and there. So I did talk to Rich Sanders, he's the county highway engineer, and I said, well, what do you think about these culverts? And he says he doesn't care. If the watershed wants to remove them, he won't argue, and he would really not mind if we took over the ditch either. So, but in all reality, I think the 3 culverts are going to stay in place. If the ditch is built, if the ditch is not built. So when we designed the ditch from the beginning, typically we wouldn't have such, the channel at the beginning is designed to handle all the flow that can possibly come through 3 36-inch culverts when they are flowing full. So the beginning of the ditch is designed for 100 CFS, which is astronomical for a beginning of a new farm ditch. So we are trying to account for the water that is coming out of the ditch 66 system during a summertime flood. I have not personally observed 66 overflow in the summer, but I've been told that it does. And I have no reason not to believe that, and the reason it does is the capacity of 66 is very small and it is full of cattails. So that would tell me that the folks that have concerns with building this ditch are valid. They are concerned that if we build a ditch, the water will come. We'll provide an alternate route instead of repairing 66 and fixing it. They're going to look to, and it is no different from this drain and all the other ones along here. They're all taking their share of water that they shouldn't want to take. And so in this particular case, at least this new drain anticipates that flow, and it is designed to handle the flow that is coming there now when the ditch overflows. It isn't going to protect these folks, because they're still going to be sitting behind County Road 20, which basically acts as a dike. And so we can't solve the world problems, but we certainly need to take into account what is in place. And so the new ditch is starting out at a very high design flow, and that flow is, the ditch is built to take that flow along with the water that enters downstream. And so, and you can say that's right, that's wrong, but we can't ignore the water that's coming. And we are trying to address it in the best way without changing anything here. We know we're most likely going to have to deal with that water. I'm getting close to my end deal here. The watershed area is 16.5 square mile. The preliminary cost estimate is $1.6 million. I think it's only fair to express some kind of a cost. And if you divide the 1.6 million by the watershed area only, the average assessment would be $151, but that is not going to happen. That never happens average. You could pay as high as, just throw out a number, usually the people closer to the drain would be probably twice the average, or 300, and it would tail off accordingly however the project is viewed. But to go forward, I think the board needs to know, is the project, I think they have to determine certain things here today, if it's feasible, if it's a public benefit, is the outlet adequate, and so my report needs to address that, and they can make, where is it a public benefit means, is it of value to the public, and is the cost reasonable in regard to how much the benefit could be. One thing I didn't hit on today that the board will have to consider is the report states that the Gamma Ray is an adequate outlet. And the Bowser report is, I got about a B- on it this time. Bowser expresses, they look at all the state law and they look at what the report says, and they try to point out some things that might not be crystal clear in the report, or things that might not be evident in the report. But the Bowser comment says that the report presents a good description, and their concerns have a lot to do with stuff I talked about. Ditch 66, conformance to the existing standards, and what formula we use to design the flow rate. I think we designed one that is pretty well accepted by a lot of local engineers, and it mimics what Bowser would rather have us use. They use a USGS formula. We use a formula that is basically based on square miles of drainage, how many, it predicts how many CFS you would have. One of their biggest comments in their report is ditch 66 concerns, and we need to address them. And we not only need to address them, but ultimately, if we go forward, the viewers are going to have to address them, and that's not my bailiwick. I don't do that. The grammar rate is adequate. There's been a lot of work on it recently downstream. The social impacts have not been addressed. We will have to do. We will have to look for artifacts, and we will have to do a wetland inventory. But primarily, that stuff that you're very little concerned about. One thing I would say is that what was evident when I talked to Polk County, I talked to farmers, I talked to county ditch engineers, is that this isn't a new problem. It's been persistent, and it seems to kind of surface boil over every few years. And right now, I think there's a lot of commonality to petitions we received. It is 2016. That was a bad year. It rained, and most drains were inundated. In particular, there was a lot of trips out here made by people trying to put out fires. People were very angry at each other. In particular, they were wondering why the ditch wasn't working, why they should be able to pump, why, and they were pointing fingers of where the blame should lie. And a lot of it is, you could even point it towards God, because this is really a big part of the problem, is this overflow, and the water's coming cross country. And right here, go to that picture, Nick, and I'm just going to show you what it looked like on Monday so you understand that well, this is the water coming through where we start our ditch is a half a mile north, but this is water that's coming across the county road to the two 36-inch culverts that are in place. Zoom out and go to, this one is the beginning of, this is the beginning of ditch 66, right where this is a pipeline crossing. The channel is right here. The water, we're looking to the west. Our ditch starts way over here in the edge of these trees, but there's no chance for this drain to pick up all the water, because it's just breaking out on both sides, and it's heading cross country. And where it ends up is down at that intersection right there. Our ditch starts a mile to the west of here. The water's going over the road here. We're looking south. The water's going over the road here. This is where the CRP is located. And in 66, actually the water is trying to move back towards 66. So now, this is probably not valid. We don't design a ditch for this here springtime event, but some of the folks say that's not unordinary even in the summer. So I don't know. I have no first-hand knowledge. I don't pretend to know exactly what's going on there. But I know that we need to deal with the water that comes through the county road, and we need to probably look at, it's going to be a tough project to view, because we're going to have to look at which area is really contributing. And I tried to make an effort. I calculated the maximum flow that could come through 3 36-inch pipe, and I worked the problem backwards. In other words, if there wasn't another drain spilling over, how big of an area would you have to contribute that amount of water? And it comes to 3.5 square miles. Beyond what we are designed for. So, that is just an effort to help the folks that are going to look at the report and try to say, well, maybe we should look to the, when we assign benefits, that'll be another day. So that's all I have.
This time we'll open it up to the board for questions. I got maybe one, couple of different, did you give the cost of the benefits of all the property? The assessed construction was 1.6.
1.6, that includes us receiving a grant from the NRC, the West Polk County Soil Water Conservation District. We applied for a grant to help pay for the field inlets. So I think there's $160,000 or something in that vicinity. So that was taken off the cost of the project, and then we basically just took the estimated cost, divided it by the drainage area only.
Okay. Maybe another question, I don't know if it's relevant, but when we're getting this close to ditch 66, are we removing some of the benefits from that 66 system and depleting the fund for the future maintenance on that ditch?
No, because, if you go to the map, next, the topo map. Right, if you pull in close enough, going up here, Nick. This is the abandoned part of 66, but right now, this is the county road. And right now, this is supposed to intercept the water that's coming, so we didn't have this included in the drainage area.
Are they putting a protection on that west side then?
Well, if you go to the 66 assessment area, what you're looking at is, I guess we're playing assessing. See, this is where our ditch starts, and this is the assessment area for 66 now. So yeah, it's overlapping because we're actually draining land that's in the 60, supposedly in the 66 district. And then to really complicate it, if you turn on ditch 2, ditch 2 is better because it doesn't coincide with the area we're trying to pick up. Our drainage area coincides with here, the narrow. So we're not getting into the ditch 2 assessment area, but we're getting into the 66 area.
Yeah.
The other thing is, we can even go one step further. We can look at the existing assessment area for 39. You want to?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that would,
Can I just ask a question before you do that? You said abandoned, I heard you say the word abandoned, what was abandoned?
These 2 miles down here.
When were they abandoned?
When 66 was built. There's no formal, in my mind they're abandoned, but they never formally would be abandoned. Okay. But so what we're, you don't have that one, do you? Right there. This is in 1903. This is the assessment area of the drain. I drew this 66 in on my own because it didn't exist at the time when the original assessment area. But the assessment area was limited basically to a half a mile north and south, except in this area it went 3/4 of a mile. And then there was another drain over here though too, so you know, you can just keep opening up those can of worms until you don't know when to stop, because this ditch over here is assessed the other way too. So I think we have to leave that to some folks that are able to look at the large picture and determine. I think what's happening over years, the more drains we build, we never mess with the assessment districts that are in place. They become not equitable and they're really not fair, but people get, but at some point, maybe we could look at redetermining benefits. Polk County will not do it. They do not want the controversy. They want the sleeping dogs to lie.
Larry?
Yeah, I just see some, you know, and that's the sleeping dog, but, you know, you get landowners like this particular property is paying benefits to this system and still don't have any drainage. That's, if I was owning that land and even south, it'd be a little disheartening to pay on 2 systems and you can't get rid of your water.
But you have to understand, this was the first ditch that was built, and this thing wasn't
Right.
even there. And so, you know, you have to look at a timeline of when ditches were built, and then you can see why the assessments are probably, there's some inequity about how they are today. But, you know, we don't want to, we look at these maps when we decide what the drainage area is that we need to deal with, and our concern is that in all reality, we don't care who's assessed what, we have to be certain that we are designing a ditch to pick up the water that's coming there, even if it isn't supposed to come there. I mean, we want the ditch to work when it's done. And so we can't say, well, it looks like just because we you know, so the area is 16.5 square miles, which if you look at every drain in the vicinity, there's going to be overlapping districts, because when the water gets so high, what happens is the drains that are in place, they don't act as a one single ditch anymore. They start to act as a ditch system. Water that's supposed to go someplace goes someplace else, and it happens vice versa. So at some point, you know, if you really want to get sophisticated, you could look at, if there's an existing ditch every mile, maybe we should stand back and calmly look at, you know, how should we divide up the drainage area in a fair, equitable way, but we're still not going to control water that passes from one system to the other when the water gets higher than the capacity. And we're dealing with ditches that have different capacities. Ditch 2, or this ditch 66, is probably on the ordinary, back out, go to the LiDAR. What ditch 66 appears to be adequate when you go right down here, these culverts seem to be handling the water, it's funneling the water through the system. Well, the reason it is it's running, flow's getting pulled off before it gets there. So it looks like the culverts are big enough and the channel's big enough, but it's causing water to flood other areas. And so what's happening is, in perception, it looks like, well, it's big enough, but in reality it isn't, because water's being allowed to exit the system someplace else. The O'Mara bead piling site really kind of, there used to be a culvert that crosses here. There's actually one that goes north and south. The ditch works very well. If you could take and fix this ditch so that we'd handle the water that wouldn't go from one system to the other. The water's going to come, and it's going to come if the new project's built or not. I believe that until somebody does something with the other system.
Jerry, you kind of mentioned your design and why you're handling the water that comes in now. But in your opinion, if the petition was, if you were going to write the petition, how would you remedy this situation with a ditch, with an improvement to the legal drainage system? Because, you know, you have a ditch here, here, and here, and you still have property that can't drain.
Right.
How would you, to remedy what you already know is going here, and ending up here and pooling here, making this land not even farmable, how would you propose, in your opinion, to remedy this situation, since we're here today talking about it?
You pull out a little neck. You know, the water's coming from way back here, so, you know, you probably would have to do it a lateral. The problem is if you pull down, Nick, no, the other way, go up, there's the problem. All this water ends up in ditch 2. And that's where we were the other day when we were talking about the other ditch, which was built right here. I mean, all this water that's coming from Euclid and everywhere ends up in ditch 2, and it goes, 2 is not able to handle that. So it is it's a very tough problem, because you can say even now, gee, we can't afford to do that. Maybe if we built a ditch of a higher capacity everywhere, we could handle that water And the problem is, if you go back into the ditch 2 assessment area, the problem with ditch 2 is, pull out, Nick. Pull out again. I mean, these folks upstream where the water is really coming for them is paying the lowest assessment. And the middle is the middle, and then all of a sudden the folks down on the bottom end get hammered. And this is ditch 2 here. I mean, the people 2 miles north are getting it, the people 2 miles, a mile and a half south is getting an assessment. And really, ditch 2 was in place before ditch 66. So they're just standing here innocent, and then all of a sudden 66 water gets thrown in with them.
And just for some of that drainage area in present day, a lot of that in the pink does not get there now with the conditions today because of the Palmers. I mean, so most of this area here, all this is stored right now. It's not even coming to here. So what you've seen the last few days isn't from any of this drainage area.
It's probably the green. The green. Polk County doesn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole to redetermine boundaries.
Right. Right.
Jerry, you may have addressed this, but and I missed it, but the berm height on the south of the road, or the south side of the ditch compared to the county road.
It will be higher on the bottom end because we have such a vast amount of spoil, but we will have organized spillways that will allow the water. It will never happen, but in order to keep with our standards, we will allow the water to go over into the field before the road, and we'll have some spillways. The thing is, we're so close to the Murray where we have so much dirt. Primarily, there's a ton of dirt in the last 2 miles. And it has to do with just the lay of the land. At the bottom end, the new ditch will be 5 feet lower than the existing ditch, which isn't a lot, except when you put the 5-to-1 slopes and the 4-to-1 back slopes, it becomes, if you go to the cross-section mix on the plan, you get a view on how the ditch will look if you're standing in the bottom of the ditch. And this is starting out at the very west end, and this is the County Road 66. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to hold the elevation below the road. And so the ditch, this is the field now. It's basically a continuation of the inslope, and the capacity is, the ditch when it runs at capacity flow, all the land adjacent to the ditch will be higher than the water surface profile, so that should tell you everybody will have access. The flats won't be slammed shut.
I think I'd like to open it up to the public. Gene, you got it?
I still got it. When you show the picture of that pipeline where the ditch starts and it's really flooding now, and you said that happens in the summer and it doesn't. That is, there's a county ditch just half a mile to the south of that along County Road 19 that doesn't open up. There's big, huge cottonwoods right on the shoulder. That never, every spring is just like that. So I'm just saying, I've never seen that in the summer.
This here situation right here.
Yeah, but that's the pipe,
That's the pipeline it's going
The ditch
into.
starts on this township road,
Yep,
and we've had water go over the township road on the south, to the south, because it can't, we just can't handle it, but that's in the spring. You know, I've never seen that in the summer.
I think there are some folks that get flooded that are east of County Road 22 more frequently than others.
I'm just saying, this, if you don't see this in the summer.
Okay. Any other board comments? I think at this time we'll open it up to the public for comments, and state your name and your comment. You can go by raise of the hand and we'll try to answer your question, whether it be through Jerry or the board.
Mark Coley, I sent in proxies. I'm speaking on behalf of Bob and Dorothy Jarek. They own property in Section 17, Keystone, and also Owen and Lamont Peterson. They own property on the petition and Keystone 16 on the northeast quarter. You're not going to hear an argument from me from ditch 60 or from County Road 66 to the west. Something needs to get done in that corridor. There's no doubt that that is the flat pan of the whole drainage area. Something needs to get done in that area. From 66 to the west, or to the east, excuse me, I feel the drainage there is, along with landowners, some of the landowners which are here today, we feel, or I feel, my landowners feel the drainage there is adequate enough for the way the conditions are working today, if the bottom of the bathtub had a better drain. Jerry is correct on a couple of things on Jerry's comments. One on the lift stations. On the bottom half of this drain, basically from 66 to the west, there are 6 lift stations doing drain tile into this ditch system. Which Jerry is correct, the amount of water that those are capable of pumping, that is correct. What he said, it does not add that significant amount of water in a high water environment. My concern though is what it does to that bottom of that ditch profile when it's continually pumping water, maybe once every 15, 20 minutes. The bottom of that ditch is always damp. You can't get mowers in there to mow it, cattails grow, you can't get in there to destroy that vegetation that is there from those lift stations. Thus, a problem starts when we have midsummer rains, so forth and so on. That is an issue. Will that go away? I don't know. Basically, the problem in this corridor is section 14, 13, the amount of water. I've flown this area. I've sprayed Jim Bokerbeck farm there. There used to be a berm along that ditch 66 in Jim Bokerbeck's field. I hit it with my wheels one time. There was about a 3-foot berm there. That's been removed over the years to farm closer to ditch 66. The water's flowing across in high water events, 3 or more inches of rain. The water does jump that dirt road between 13 and 14. It can and it does. And it's a problem. And I think the summer rains, the water in that corridor comes up so fast and so hard in a matter of 6 hours, it basically pushes through the system, through those culverts right north of Elmira Piling Station. Last summer, a 3-inch rain. We had kind of a beautiful 3-inch rain that hit us in June. Those culverts were pumping just like they are now. The water came up and it was out of that corridor within 10 to 12 hours. And there was actually out in the field, Wavra's farm, that northeast quarter in 15, there was actually water, waves in the dirt in their crop from running through that system. And then right there where his marker is where it jumps in on the half section line. That corner up in the northeast corner where this proposed ditch is to start, there was no water in that culvert, none. It has been said that section 11 will benefit into this ditch. No, it will not. There's a culvert on the east side of 20, north-south culvert. That is dry all the time. Matter of fact, the light, pull into the LiDAR, if you would. Basically, the northwest quarter of 14 is full of cattails, full of deltas, everything. And that dirt is, for the most part, that ditch has been abandoned. The grade in that area is one of the steepest grades for a township ditch, probably in a 15-mile radius. Because of the elevation of the ground, if you basically took the top 50 acres, there's no way you can get anything down in there to do maintenance in that ditch. It's just the way the ground lay of the land is there. The water does not go through there anymore because of problems with blow dirt, weeds, cattails, so forth and so on. So what's happening in 14 is when the water does come down the northeast quarter through the ditch, it jumps right at the half section line, and it jumps just a little bit right there, flows south, fills up John Giesey's quarter, The south half, if you would, fills up Gary Pokerbeck's green area there, and thus flows out those culverts. That is the new, if you would, drainway for that area. And it's happened and happened and happened, and if this ditch project was to be successful to go forward, there's gonna be more water coming. And I think this project, yes, it's gonna benefit the bottom 4 miles. The next 4 miles, I don't see that much of a benefit. I don't think the costs are there. And maybe, I propose this to the Watershed, maybe this project starts at County Road 66 and goes to the west. Give the bottom guys their drainage. And, you know, would we all benefit from that a little bit? Yes, we would, because the water will pass through the corridor more. By putting in a bigger ditch in this whole structure, we're just gonna see more and more water coming from the east.
How is there gonna be more water coming from the east than what's there now? How is that gonna happen?
Farmers,
Well, I mean, the water comes there now, so how are you gonna get more?
drainage will change further to the east.
But it comes there now, right?
It's coming now, but farmers were our own worst enemies. If we see a better drain and our water can go this way instead of going that way, what are we gonna do?
So let's assume, I don't.
We're trying to hold the status quo with these 3 culverts, so, you know, that's the only,
Yeah.
you know, that's the choke point. We're saying, if this overflows, these guys are going to suffer. Probably, nobody should suffer any more, probably a little less, because the outlet will be better and they'll be able to handle it. But I still think there's going to be problems in this area as long as this continues to overflow.
Correct. And I actually started farming section 11 a couple of years ago here. We spent about $15,000 cleaning up the ditch in 11 this year, or last fall. We had 3 and 4 foot deltas in the bottom of ditch 66. And through 13, that needs to get fixed also. Through the corner of 12, that berm needs to get reestablished, and we need, as a neighborhood, we need to work and get that thing reestablished and get it cleaned out, so it does function in a 3 and 4 inch summer rain properly. Spring flooding, it's gonna do what it's gonna do. But I just think until 66 is fixed, the rest of this project is just kind of putting a Band-Aid on the neighborhood. The bottom 4 miles, there's no doubt in my mind that needs to get fixed.
And I think for the record, we also should state for the board that this individual right here signed the petition and looking for some assistance for drainage.
And we do have a legal petition, there's no question about that. This is for comments. Any other comments?
Mike Creechy, are you gonna add culverts to them from the north, Jerry, like we're doing to the new ditch from the north?
You mean,
Are you automatically gonna add any north-south culverts?
what is in place will account for them when we will add it further to the west, where there are none, and
And where's that at?
that's over where Marvin Kuzel used to live.
What
Pulling over
section?
there next.
You're not gonna add any new north-south culverts to where? Or what section?
Well, in this area back here, there are existing culverts that we measured when we came in these 3 miles. When you get down to, help me out here, where's County Road 66? Help me out.
Oh, it's,
Right there. Right now, water's coming up against here, it's being forced all the way down to this yard before it goes through an 18. So we're going to try to allow access through there. Because there was some probably, because of the drain had so much problems down here, nobody wanted any more water, so nobody got culverts. That's basically what happened.
So to the east of that, you're not adding any?
To the east of that, we are probably going to add one, probably 1 per mile in the middle, and the township road culverts, if they're not at, I think the township road culverts that are coming in from the north and the south are pretty close to their right grade.
So on section 8, there's only one, as far as I know, there's only one culvert that goes north and south,
Right, it's probably in this vicinity here.
and a little bit over to the east.
Zoom in next.
So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna add any there?
Right here is where,
No,
it's either
it's right
here,
there.
yeah, you can see.
So are you gonna add any more in that section?
Mike, let him finish his speaking before you
Well,
throw
we
it
would
up.
leave that one in place, and then we would talk to the landowners, and if they can agree on where there would be another one on the quarter line, we probably would put one there too. And then we would have the existing culverts in place. I don't anticipate us cutting County Road 65 more than 6 times, because existing culverts are at a good grade and a good location. So there will be, I mean, if we're going to look at, you look at this here, I mean, the water's trying to go south here. So there's got to be a culvert here if we're going to, if these folks are going to benefit. In the $1.6 million grand scheme of things, it's an important item, but it's not a real, it's a significant cost, but the county highway department is more than willing to let us cut the road. Because we've talked about it. They view this project as I will say a godsend, but they really would like to get out of the drainage business. They are very supportive of improving the ditch. It'll help their roadway out. We have water sitting there, like Mark says. And that's a valid point, Mark. When those pumps are running, I mean, the bottom never dries out. So, at some point, you have to tell everybody, shut them off, and we're going to mow. If it's dry in August, why don't we just shut them off and give it a rest and see if we can mow the bottom?
Agree with that?
I got a comment. When you say the county wants to get out of the drainage business, when you did another ditch for us just south of 21, and they wanted to keep the east 3 or 4 miles. So there's 2 tax systems going on. The county engineer and the assessor were against that. They wanted the whole thing gone because it's just a cluster. So, I'm saying, they speak in the
40. Yeah, we'll show you how that looks, and it's really not great.
And I just would like to state for the record that the county engineer did call me last night, and he fully supports the project, and Jerry, all he talked about was his road slope and the state of his road slope, and you've already addressed that.
Here's what you're talking about, Gene. The Watershed took this over from here to here, and they said, no, we're not gonna improve this. So what you had is this is taken care of by the Watershed, probably jointly with the county, I don't know. And this is taken care of by the county. These guys got by with little. These guys only paid 3% of the cost of the repair project, and they got a heck of a lot more benefit than that. But it was hard to determine what it should be, but there again, to get an improved outlet for 6 miles and only pay 3% of the project is a heck of a good deal.
Any other comments pertaining just to this project?
Don Barrett, speaking for Marianne Chikwalinski. I believe you got a proxy sent in. I'm on the very west end, and I got several questions. Are you going to go from that northwest corner of 17 to the coulee, or is it going to stop there?
The ditch alignment, the legal drain goes to the center of the coulee. We daylight out though with the grade before the 80 line. So that's, we're not going to dig the ditch deeper than we have to. So
Yeah, but you're going to go 6 feet deeper on that northwest corner.
Right, and right here we hit.
And then now,
We daylight out. Right here. Before this yard culvert, that culvert is below the grade. So we'll increase the capacity of this approach, but we won't mess with the ditch bottom grade there. We'll add another.
it seems like we're going to pay more on that end, and it's absolutely going to do us no good.
You're on the
It seems like-
downstream end, yeah.
It seems like people from out east should pay more.
That would be a valid comment.
And that would, you definitely make that point if this project proceeds to the viewers, that you make that point.
I agree with you.
And then we're gonna have so much dirt there. It seems to me like you're gonna take 4 acres and dig it out.
We need 4 acres of right of way, and then when we're beyond that, we're gonna pile the dirt along, in the field, which you will farm, if you want to farm it.
Okay, the half-mile crossing,
Here, we're gonna keep that in place.
the half-mile crossing,
Yes. Correct me?
okay?
Correct.
Because we're gonna have so much dirt there, I believe we could build a hell of a crossing there.
Any place there's an existing, like here, we do have a culvert put in. And what's gonna happen along here, because of Polk County's effort to upsize the culverts, there's a lot of new culverts out there that we're gonna try to salvage and utilize. They'll be longer, and we'll take the if the culverts are in a good place, we'll salvage them, and we obviously will have to have a longer culvert to that approach, because you have to have, farmers nowadays want a 40-foot top, and they want to be able to turn their semis in. So we need longer culverts just to do that, and the project does anticipate all these culverts in the first 4 miles are all the same size. They're all steel arch pipe. They're all the same size, and they were all put in at the same time. And the effort was, they're doubled up. They're 2 in every road. And so where we would get down on this end, we wouldn't put junk culverts in, but we would utilize them. Maybe we down here, there's a concrete one, and then there's a 4-foot. We probably would consolidate that. The capacity is going to be greater than the ones that are in there now, and we'd work with the landowner there. It's a private driveway. We would work with them on what kind of culvert they want in there. We're not going to put in, the only place we have a concrete culvert now is through County Road 66, and we have one through this driveway. And then all the existing culverts upstream are concrete 36-inch, but those are probably getting up there in age, and they'll be replaced with steel pipe. And there'll be multiple pipe where there's one now. Everybody needs to get something so it helps everybody. The project is intended so that it'll benefit not just the downstream, but it'll benefit everybody to the same degree. That's my job, is to make sure these kind of systems, they're supposed to be self-operating. In other words, you shouldn't have to open a gate, close a gate. I mean, it'll operate on its own as it's supposed to if you don't do nothing. So it's very important we get the culvert size correct, because that's the choke points and the control points. And we will, along this ditch too, there's no berms. We will seed the berms. That'll be a project cost. If we don't build a ditch, I think probably they'll start chasing cars or chasing you guys, and you'll be seeding grass on berms.
You say you're gonna pay $300 for your, where you push that dirt. Who's gonna take care of that acreage?
That year?
Well, it's gonna be for ongoing years.
Well, no, you're gonna farm that unless you don't want to, but if you don't want to farm the spoil, I guess that's.
I don't believe you would farm it for
We
a couple
farm the
years.
spoil on every ditch we ever built, anywhere in the whole county.
I think what he's asking though is the maintenance of the temporary easement.
Oh, that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
The 16-foot would be mowed with a.
No,
Oh, he's
no,
talking,
out in the, where you push all that dirt.
Yeah, you'd be farming that.
not the first year, on the
I don't think
temporary.
you'd farm it the second year neither.
Well,
Well, there's that.
The first year, I can guarantee you, the bulldozers will take care of the weeds.
Yeah,
The second year is typically what happens, if it's black and it's there, people will farm it. And if they don't want to farm it, I guess it's their choice. If you want us to keep the weeds down for a second year, I don't think that's... We're trying to make the people whole. Normally speaking, we'll only put that out of 1 year production. So you're getting $300 an acre. We're gonna, up to 2, but if it's 1 year, you still get the 300.
And then the rocks that come out of that ditch,
The rocks won't be in the field.
okay?
I think there's some rocks, like you told me, down on the bottom end.
There's several places where they dump some riprap or whatever in there.
I built ditches and I've been driving with my pickup and I've been picking rocks. Well, I probably can do it again. You know, it's not our intent to
I mean, that can be handled in the provision of the contractor, he's gotta pick the rocks up. I mean, we run into that all the time. I mean, the contractor's gotta pick the rocks up, that could be in the
Or
specs.
you'll bury them a foot deep.
Well, you also have inspectors out there that make sure that that's not happening, so
Okay.
you know. I mean, we run in, we've dug ditches all over where there actually is rocks on the fields. So, it's not the first time we've dealt with rocks, and they have pickup. I mean, we've had Zavros do ditches up and down the valley, and they have staff that goes out and they pick them up by hand.
Part of the project.
Yep, and that's part of the project. I do have a question to the culverts, since you brought up the county put new culverts in, and they lowered the culverts, and that was part of the road job, correct?
No, it was part of an effort to make
That's
the
not what
ditch
I wanted
work
to hear,
better.
but anyway, so who paid for the culverts?
The county.
So, and not the ditch authority?
It
I'm
was-
just asking because who owns them culverts is my question.
I think Rich Sanders would say the ditch system owns them.
Okay, because that's important to know because if they're the county's culverts, as part of the road job, they may not be the
They
ditch
were
system,
put in,
right?
actually, they were put in 20 years ago by, a county commissioner was pretty active in the area, and he just said, we'll do it. That was Henry put it.
That was like an improvement.
Well, that would have been by definition,
But that probably wasn't permitted.
that wasn't a petition.
No, but it was an effort to, it just goes to the performance of the ditch.
How come we didn't fix 66 too then?
You know, they're squeaky wheels, we need more squeaky wheels.
Let's keep it tasked to the comments of the public. Sure.
Kurt Amundson here. Couple questions back up there, my daughter's crossing. You're gonna widen out, I assume, the whole ditch, or not drop it down, but you're gonna at least widen it out, right?
We're gonna improve the slopes so they're more
Almost.
bright. And
Right
then
now,
we'll-
it's breaking out and going through the culvert that I put in on
Zoom in
her
there.
driveway.
There's a culvert here, and then I think there's one back here.
Yeah,
You can even see the erosion. So there's, yeah.
it's eroding on the east side of the driveway there because it breaks out, comes in so fast. So I just wanna make sure you're gonna widen that out, just not choke it down. Couple other questions here. The culverts east of Highway 66, you said you're gonna increase all of them?
Yes.
We're not gonna do nothing with 66 box, or I'll call it a weir.
That is the
Because
right
it's drops
size.
in.
It's a 6 by 12.
10, 6, 10.
So the other ones upstream, the pinch point is, they're all the same. The first one, I think, is 236s, and then beyond that, it's 36, 36, all the way to Kingdom Come. So, in other words, for those folks to have way out east, the first crossing goes to 236s, I believe, and then they size up to 242s, and then they size up to, we eventually get to the 12 by 6, which is the concrete one through the county road. Rich Sanders is delighted that we won't be tearing that road up. And it is at the right grade. In fact, the first culverts that are a mile west of 66 are at the grade of the new ditch, but they were installed too low. So when you see where the biggest impact is going to be, it's going to be in those 3 miles. That's where we start going down, 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 because We just are, right now the ditch is at 1 foot to 1.5 foot drop per mile, and the new ditch will have a 3 feet per mile, but it not only will be that, it will be wider on the bottom. And the water surface profile, which everybody's screaming about, we got pumps hanging over the spoil now, is the water will be low enough that the traps will stay open longer, and we probably will, everybody will receive a benefit. The ditch will actually look way too big on the downstream sides, but in order for those folks not to be screaming at each other and there's no, the ditch is full, we need to lower the water surface profile. And we need to get the water in that ditch down around 4.5 feet deep so that the people right adjacent to the ditch, when the water's flowing by them, they can also contribute a little bit of water to the, and have an outlet. So.
Yep, any other questions, Kurt?
On one slide there, it showed down by the moraine, there is a gray area, and it showed actually both sides of the moraine there. And it wasn't that one. There's another one that they showed.
He's got a different photo here.
Maybe that's where it was kind of what you're calling airing out or whatever.
It daylights out about right in here. But we will, we'll tie this driveway in so that water will pass through here, it won't go around. We'll put in enough berm here so that the water it doesn't break out and go around.
Up on our section up there, we got 7 culverts going in. Are you gonna put just 5 in, or we're gonna have to reconstruct?
That's my goal. What section is that? It's all
13 of Sullivan. Right next to 66.
13 right here. You own this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you got 1, 2, 3,
There's
4,
7.
6, yeah. Well, if I had my way, I'd give you them all, but we might try to consolidate a couple of these two and a couple of these. That would be my hope. I am not in the business of talking. We're building the ditch so you can drain.
Right, but I just want to make sure if we have to reconstruct.
The issue is maintenance. The issue is people who run into them with lawnmowers.
Or the hired hand.
Should that be a reason not to have them? I don't know, but I think it would be better off not to hit them and have them. But I hear you. And the cost of putting these in, especially if the West Polk County are helping them, they will look a lot more sophisticated than a farmer installed one. They will, when you look at the side of the ditch, the end of the culvert will be into the ditch and it'll be a divot that will be filled full of rock. It'll have a flap gate in it, and it'll look more like a Cadillac than a Chevrolet. But we're only allowed so many Cadillacs.
Right. Going back to ditch 40 and Moore County, or the Watershed Moore got our trap off there.
That one there?
Got the trap off again down by the moraine.
Oh, down here. Okay.
Yeah. I just saw it when you said the mowers had to make some damage. One other thing, food for thought. We were talking about, and everybody's friends in here, I don't want to take a step on people's feet, but our tiling, and that, Mark kind of touched base a little bit on it. Is there, and I've been around tiling since the 70s out in Oakley, everything tiled out there, and but is there something down the road, basically the ditches, Mark saying, and what he said, I agree, cattails come, can't take care of ditches, it's a headache, it's a cost to the ditch system. And once again, we're all friends in here, and we've had tile ground out in Oakland for years. if we taxed that a little bit more, because there's expense that everybody else in the system shouldn't have to eat. You know, if I tiled my half section or section there, I'd agree. I have other expenses because I'm putting tiling in there, and the system has to take care of the cattails now. It's just food for thought. The tax base should go up in the tiling area.
Yeah, I agree. Gary, you have a comment?
Yes, Gary Polterbeck. I'm going to talk about section 14 and the south and east quarter by Elmira, the swamp. My son here farms 40 acres to the east, which is probably should be in a swamp too. They're building a ditch. Where the red spot is, they put a cement barrier there to hold the water, and it's made it worse, so it's really bad like it is now. The water don't go across the quarter, which I wouldn't want my water going that way either. I ditched to the south, to the north, and east, along 20, all the way to the ditch we're talking about, and lower the culvert in the crossing for Geezy's. Geezy's goes underwater. It's like 14. It's a lot of wet spots out there, a lot of wet spots. Goodwin is the same thing. His water's got to go down that ditch too, and you're stopping it short of draining them to 3/4. I don't know if it's been put. Like my sister's put theirs back in the CRP because Grant does not want to farm another swamp. You don't have enough. You know, it's really low out in the middle there. My dad farmed it. We tried around the water south. You can see the ditches that run the south there, but don't go that well. He gets the high water, but not the low water. He wants to go up to where the spot is there and go across the field. Well, it's normal. We don't want, nobody wants water running across their field. It's a waterway. It's a natural waterway across the field, but it should go down the ditch, you know, a road ditch. Now you're going to shut it off on the corner there. You know, are the culverts going to be significant, low enough to take our water from there and maybe a half a mile to the east of Goodwin and Geezy can get drainage? I think it should be looked at. And 66 to stop. You've got water coming out of 66. If you're worried about it, I think they can be looked at and stop the water from, or get your dikes along the west side built up so it doesn't come out of there. It's been like they farm down, needs to be put back up, maybe just a foot and stop the water coming to the west.
Ivan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so
I can't, that's what, that quarter is just wet.
have you shot that elevation to that pipe up there?
Right now, this, I think Water put a berm up, so the water, they're trying to funnel the water down along this. So right now, this ditch will drain if the water isn't too much. And it'll shoot across.
We're not worried about the high water because it's going across the whole country.
Right. What we tried to do is kind of walk a fine line between leaving the status quo culverts and providing some sort of a benefit. If the water can move away, you know, I think that's probably a valid thing that you are in involuntary holding pond right now.
Wouldn't be there if we wouldn't put the dikes there. That wouldn't be wet. I can open that up.
Right.
I can open that back up and let that get out of there, not 80% of it. But that's not getting rid of the water I want to get rid of.
What happens if
won't
you
go. That
take
ditch
this off?
The ditch on the north side, from that dot, you got to the middle of the section, it's right there, that, in the bottom of the line, that's wet all summer long, it's carrying water.
If you dike this off, it'll back the water up here. If you hold the water in 66, and you don't improve the channel, it's just gonna back it up there.
But then that goes back to the question I had an hour and a half ago. What can you do to make that 14 better just in low flood? We're not talking overland. We're not talking flooding. We're talking about just normal 2-3 year event. How can you, what can we do to get
We upsized the culverts downstream and we made the channel bigger so the water that can get through them will move away. That's about the only benefit you're gonna get.
You ain't gonna get any of that water from where Jimmy's is there, or them two high, the north quarters, to go back to this east and up. It's not gonna do it.
No, Mark said, and Mark's true, there's a lot of grade here. There's a lot of grade in this just because of the lay of the land. So, you know, if you say we should dig the drain here, see, the people are reluctant to get too close to 66. The closer we get to it, the more the odds are we're going to become the unwilling recipient. And
The high water it's coming that way anyway. The high water's coming that way anyway. Right now, if you get the low water, it goes down 66, you know? It finds its way, it don't go down there. It's coming down.
Who's the landowner's area in that, the fourth?
On
section?
14?
Yeah,
My sisters.
okay.
And they're not here, they just told me it's 2 feet. You know, they can't rent it.
Then, yeah.
well,
They're not petitioners on this project then?
Nobody, don't think they know if they got papers or not.
I can try to answer your question. It's, the new ditch is 2 feet below.
You're gonna lower the culvert on the line?
Existing culvert is 850.4.
Existing color is 850.4 and hit another spot here, Nick. Maybe we can find a lower spot. So it's roughly 2 feet of drop. Now, can you get it at 3/4 of a mile in 2 feet?
Right now, I think it's 0. Because, you know, on the north side, going across Easy, that's carrying about a foot of water all summer long. It's wet all the time. That's wet all the time. The
I
work's
think
holding up there
because-
for them. And then their field is pretty much wet like mine. It's the same. It's the same. And it's a shame they're putting in you're cleaning or making a ditch that you're gonna drain those 2/4.
Gary, what you're saying is a foot more in elevation would be huge for you at this point.
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
What you got here, though, we'll have to investigate the elevation of these culverts because, you know, if Wavra's ditch, which is the county road ditch, you wouldn't have to go across Geesey. You could get it to go across and up.
Well, we have a ditch on the line, and we have a ditch along the highway, but when you get to the north, the ditch you're cleaning is not gonna go anyplace. It stops.
This culvert is,
We can't, that's culvert, you can take it out.
that's what I said.
Mark, do you have a comment? I'll let Mark butt in there.
Sorry, I think there needs to be looked at is the elevation on the bottom of the culverts there where the red dot is and up on the east-west township road up to the north where the county road ends there. I would tend to believe that take your pointer to the west there, that the culvert there that goes on, east-west culvert that goes underneath the highway there is higher than the culverts where the red dot is. And like Gary said, that where the dashed line is, that's wet in the bottom of that ditch all summer long. There's water flowing in there. If 66 has any water in the bottom of it, where it's allowed to, you know, drain, kind of follow the natural drain of the land, if you would, it's wet in there. And the other thing is the side slopes are, you can't even drive a four-wheeler on you tip. I mean, it's very steep, and the elevation there is, I bet you there's, Jerry, a 5-foot elevation difference between in the ground between the northeast corner of that section and the northwest corner.
We agree with you. That's why we didn't even figure this in the drainage area because it should go supposedly.
Because I farmed section 11, none of that water except that one spot right there. Everything in section 11 flows north.
Right.
None of that water comes south.
We didn't include that area in the drainage area. So, you know, I guess we agree.
But everything south at 14 would go there.
The problem is for like Gary, give me drainage somewhere. And the people downstream would say, we don't wanna give you any more than we got. You got 336s, that we,
I know that nobody is feeling with that.
right, and so, and you know,
To include that legally for the watershed, would they have to petition that 14 in
no,
order for us to do that?
there's some latitude in the statute that the engineer can, at his discretion.
I mean, that's something we'd like to hear, I think, you know, as far as.
I mean, and
You know,
We're so close to being able to alleviate maybe the whole thing, why not try to get it all?
well, we're not even maybe talking going farther west. It would help to, in the engineer's estimate or opinion, to bring the lateral down a half a mile farther to 14. No, don't go east, come south, on the west side of the road, or east side of the road. I mean,
It's
just-
already
just a
on the
thought.
west side,
Okay.
because Wabers did it,
Well, then maybe that's the alternative.
make it better.
To make it better so the landowner here doesn't have to depend on the private landowner
The
to
key
keep
is,
that clean.
if this moves out, it doesn't matter which side of the road it is. Gary seems to think he's got it going on the east side, but the culvert needs to be low enough so that he can get it to run out. Now, 2 feet and a half a mile is sometimes as good as it gets.
No, yeah, for sure. And that's not horrible.
In the eyes of the beholder.
I just looked at that piece of property, and I've driven, I mean, I don't even farm around here, and I've looked at that piece of property since I was old enough to look at water, and I'm living in a river. That's been a horrible spot forever, and it seems to me now that it's the time to fix it.
I think you're right, Myron, all land's not created equal.
Mark?
I have a procedural question. The other ditch that is a mile north of this proposed one, where it was cut off, and I know there's comments about, yes, that should have gone further east, so forth and so on. Procedurally, can the board decide to only go the first 4 miles to give it a trial 2 or 3 years to see how the system works, instead of going through all this cost, all this assessment, and ultimately if things don't get fixed out east in 13 and 12 and 14, there's just going to be more water coming into the system. Yes, that whole corridor may have a better system, but the amount of water that it's going to handle is going to increase. Can the board make that?
I think I could answer that, but me and Del Rey is just about sleeping, he's our legal guy, I'm gonna let him take that one. We do have a petition project, so.
Yeah, it's up to the board based on the comment and everything, you know, as to what the scope and size of the project would be. So if they decided to do the 4, then that is the project. So it's not necessarily a trial period. In order to do something further, there'd have to be another petition, and you would have to go through the whole same process again.
But what rights would the ones that petitioned if they were in the 5, 6, 7, 8 mile Del Rey?
Well, you guys have to make a decision just based on sound water management and based on the engineer's recommendation.
In a certain state statute?
Right. So the petition can request it, but it's up to the board as to what project is actually built.
Yeah, this.
Correct, and I don't think anybody wants another ditch 40, where one system takes only the bottom end and then Polk County. Polk County, you know, we could take over the whole ditch and only improve the bottom, but some folks would like to keep it in the county's jurisdiction, but 40 was not a good deal. It really wasn't, because 40 got done the way it is because, I'm going to be frank, there was a lot of distrust on what's going to happen, so we want to stop there so we can talk to different folks when we cross over that line. Bowser even says that, and I don't know if he's particularly right, but he says any improvement would have to be turned over to the watershed. It's the jurisdiction would be turned over. Now, it becomes a question of interpretation. If we improve the outlet, aren't we improving everybody's lot in life in the system? I guess I would say yes. And if we're not, we want to be consistent in our improvement. We don't want to improve the bottom better. And what this boils down to in the end, is it will boil down to is who pays for what. And unless you get something, it's very hard to assess you something.
And when you're a viewer, and you just stated the pipes are all the same, right? So now if you go to 66 and you stop it there and you haven't changed any pipes upstream, so they still have a 36-inch or two 36-inch pipes where there should be a 42. They're getting no more benefit than what they had before you dug the outlet. So you have to look at the hydraulics. They're not, none of their hydraulics change unless you change the pipes. They still are draining the same way, the same speed, and there's no benefit. So until you improve all the way to 20, the very little cost to any of these folks that are sitting here out in this area will be paying to that improved area because their hydraulics hasn't changed at all. It's just that simple.
I got a question for Gary. If there was a lateral put from, that came down 14 or on the east side, would that, you feel, Mark and Gary, would that benefit that?
Yeah, that's gonna take care of 2 quarters.
East or west, shouldn't matter.
Yeah, even here.
Not either way, I mean, if there was a lateral down there.
Because
you
the
feel
ditch
that
that Wabra's put in there, I don't know if it's a ditch for him, it's pretty narrow on the bottom, it's.
But it would be a legal ditch for the watershed then.
That's a decent ditch on the east side. I did ditch it all the way and I surveyed it, and it's a drainable ditch, but there's no place for the water to go.
And
It
you just,
stands.
their petition is already going into 14, so, I mean, the landowner, from a petition standpoint.
If you got those culverts to drain there, that, half-mile line, then it would take care of that whole 2 quarters drain. He's gonna drain my sister's.
It would make sense to put the lateral on the west side for 2 reasons. The existing culverts would act as a control point, and so it isn't an open, free feeder for the water to come across. And it also, so we would just have to make sure that this ditch had dropped. We could leave this culvert in place. We've got a lot more grade in these miles than in other places, so we could lower this ditch a little. But we'd have to carry that grade all the way down, unless we just tried to burn it up in the first mile, which we could. You know, there's no reason why this has to be at 0.75% grade, which is probably pushing 5 feet per mile. And that's what's projected. You wouldn't want to create a problem on the next mile either, though, so sometimes you'd want to be very careful that you don't just shift the problem. You don't want to move the problem here to here. You know, the board, I think, could tell me to direct me to do it.
Or to research it, I mean,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I just think we're so close to getting just about all of it. It would sure be nice if we could capture it.
Now's the time.
Now's the time, we got a legal ditch there to maintain it.
I disagree a little bit with Myra in that if you include the outlet, it can be a benefit on lower events to see the water move out quicker.
All I'm saying is my history with the viewers is that unless you've improved their hydrology to some degree, and we can argue about that because that doesn't matter, it's off
You guys want to save that for another?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Any other questions out there, sir?
Charlie Hockett, my wife and I live on Section 8 on the north side of County 65. Appreciate you, your watershed board to have the hearing. It's a real good education for all of us here. I got a question for Jerry on the culverts crossing County 65 from the north to the south. Could you explain that a little more? How many are you looking at?
Back me up to 8. He's in 8. He's over here. He's over here.
Yeah.
There. Charlie's in 8. There will be culverts on both sides of the township road, and then we would probably put one, if this is a major field drain that drains your quarter, and if you can't get it here, we probably would try to put a shared one in here with your neighbor. Right here, this is where Tommy is, you're right. Yes, if it's warranted, and if you know, we could, this is probably one of the 5 or 6 we would put in. Typically on a section of land, a 24-inch pipe is good enough for a 10-year event, if you can limit the flow. See, the problem is everybody says this guy don't drain the water south, but I think he does. So you have to be realistic in the sizing of that pipe. So if you put another 24-inch, theoretically, a 24-inch should be adequate for the whole half section. But it's not in reality because, for 2 reasons, it's in the wrong place. We need 2 in 2 different places, otherwise we've got to dig a canal to get to 1. And the second one is we're getting more water than Jerry says you should get. So, you know, to get access to a ditch means if you're going to pay for it, you should get something. Right.
That leads me to my next thought. I'm referring to the natural drainage of that area. A lot of areas in the whole west and east. The natural drainage is northwest there. And there was a petition improvement that the Watershed Board did on, which is now ditch 11, it used to be county ditch 40 in 2006. And that was obviously needed because the ditch there was quite small. So after that project was done, we have adequate drainage. So for where we're living, this proposed project, in my mind, does nothing for us. I know that everybody that's farming along that road probably is going to benefit something, but for us, it does nothing. We have a small tract of land in the southwest corner of Section 9, and that drains very readily to the north to Watershed ditch 11.
Yes. There's interesting because there's some spot in there where there's no benefits, there was no benefits assessed to let them in some of these, I don't know if it's this area, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, we paid additional taxes for ditch 11.
Okay.
As well as the other landowners on Section 9. As I mentioned, the southwest corner of Section 9,
It's right here, Charlie.
right there,
Yep.
drains readily to the ditch to the north. And I was just made aware of recently that there was a new approach installed like 100 feet north of the half-mile line, which is really good to do. It makes good sense, but it kind of impedes the drainage now going to the north.
This is 11 approved.
Right.
Yeah.
So also, I guess I agree with what Mark was commenting on the tile pumps, and Kurt also commented on that. When I was growing up on Section 9, we never saw cattails anywhere along that road except until you get to the marine. And tile pumps are needed. The tile is helping growers improve the benefit of their land. If there's some way to manage that a little better so we don't get the cattails in the ditch, that would be a great improvement.
And, you know, we've been dealing with this a little more and more all the time. You know, we've got a few regulations, and permitting isn't now with the watershed, but it's getting to be more all the time. When can we shut these off so producers can maintain these ditches, you know? I think that's just coming more evident all the time that there's gonna have to be some rule made by the watershed where they're gonna have to shut some of these things off. I mean, I'm a prime example, I got a guy's mine, I mowed my ditches, I've never mowed them since he put the tile in 3-4 years ago. And you know, when you're trying to keep your property up, it's pretty frustrating when you can't get down there and mow these cattails and stuff. So I think the more we hear this from the people, the more this board's gonna wanna enact something a little more strict with the tiling and not create anybody any adverse effects.
Getting back to the, just for section 9, I'm looking at there's no benefits that were assessed to 40 all the way to here. All that's no benefits to that ditch. This is at $100 and the rest is at $250. So very little, a small benefit to this one here, no benefit to here was paid on ditch 40. In section 8, no benefits at all to 40, to here and down.
So you're saying that I didn't pay taxes to that ditch system?
Not on the south half of section, not here. You did here,
Right,
none here.
okay.
There's a map.
Yeah, I got it now.
Okay, so just show Charlie that.
Yep, so it's right here. That's at $100, this is at $250. So you paid $100 per acre as a benefit. You didn't pay that, but that was your benefit. It's zero here.
Mark?
Jerry, a question on the preliminary engineering stuff. Of the 6 lift stations that are in the project area, do those need to be moved, and who's paying to move those?
The ones that are, none of them have to be moved. In fact, in section, I think it's 16 there, go further to the east, Nicholas. Help me out, where's Kyler? Where's 66?
Section 14,
14.
right there.
There's a rural water line that's right running with us there, and we're not gonna affect that water line either. So, we're not gonna affect that pump that's in that corner there. It's gonna be okay where it is. It might be sitting on a little bit of an island if we have to, you know, if the back slope gets too close, we might do something to, or we'll have to just ask the property owner to move it.
Kurt, how about the fiber optics? I got 2 questions. The fiber optics first.
We did do an inventory of the fiber optics, and there were some places where they weren't able to run in the field, so they actually ran on the shoulder of the county road. There's about a half a mile of that, and then there's about 2.5 miles that are in the way. They'll have to be moved. We talked to Wickstrom. It's an old fiber optic, and the number we have to move that line, move PKM, which have some overhead power, and move Marshall Polk water lower, we have to just lower them, and deal with CenturyLink, is estimated at 80,000. So that is in our estimate to move the utilities out of the way. And that is, that's well within our contingencies of what we anticipate. So we have contacted them, there's nothing guaranteed. You know.
Second question, on Charlie's land there, the south 40, I'll call it, was in the benefit roll on 11. Is it on the benefit roll on 39?
Yeah, we'll turn 39 on, and yeah, it is. It's 39, it's over here, Nick, pull it this way. It's basically a half a mile only in that area.
Section 9 there.
Yeah, right there.
So.
But it's at a lower rate.
There's no way for him to get any water into that ditch, period.
Well, right now they say he should be getting it in there.
It starts at his mom and dad's place. It goes all the way to the Murray on the north side of the road. There's absolutely no cross culverts. first cross culvert would be on the east side of Norman and Lily and Huffitz. On the east side of that farm there, yeah, that's the first cross culvert. The next one would be on, I'll call it Benson's corner, but Doc Kimball's corner there, right by Novacek's pump station. There's a, and then each one of the mile lines from there east has one, including on the east side of 66 where you said there wasn't one by Marlon Kozel's old farm, old house.
I think there's a pump here.
There's one, there's a cross culvert.
There's a cross culvert there, that's the first one.
On the east side of that farmstead right there.
What we're talking about really is providing a culvert so you can access it.
If you are putting one in there, yeah, but before, he's been taxed for nothing.
1903, the county road wasn't even there.
Not your fault, I know.
Yeah, 1903, the county road wasn't even there.
Another question on the, like, sections 8 and 7, on the north side of the road, that ditch isn't adequate, because the Maria is only a mile and a quarter away.
I think, yeah, when you tail off, if you don't contribute water, probably won't get an assessment.
It flows now, the water goes away, I'm not, maybe Paul has a comment on it, right?
I think what we're considering today is the project, and then you're leaning more towards the assessment here. Who should pay for it? I think you're giving us a preview of what you think.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sir?
Lauren Johnson. Touching in on that, what is the true assessment on this project area?
We don't know.
You don't know?
I shot you a number, I think an average.
He provided in his engineer's report an affected area, and he can show you that again if you missed that. That would be on your cover sheet, your affected area.
Yeah, I think I missed that too, I didn't.
Because I'm on section 17 on the southwest quarter, and like Charlie was saying, his went north, mine goes south.
And when you called me this morning, I was looking at this map right here, and here's section 17.
Yep.
So their affected area is this right now. That's the engineer's way to get the affected area. And that can change with the viewing process if this proceeds, but I mean, when you get to the far west end of a project like this, and you have an array and adequate outlet for your, the viewers look at that.
Will the viewer be contacting adjacent people that aren't in this?
They will be basically looking at an area and having landowner meetings, and then they'll run through the watershed district. We'll set times and for each landowner to meet with the viewers if it gets to that point.
I think that maybe the board is gonna have to look at it as two different options, Jerry, and you maybe won't agree, but option A being what you presented legally, we have a petition that's legal and binding, but two, maybe a lateral to address what Mark was talking about, and Gary Pokerbeck as an option to come at the final hearing to see if it's an adequate outlet, feasibility is there, when we have more of the viewers and the cost of the project.
It won't be hard to do.
No, and I think it's something that we're so close that it should be addressed now when we're doing it, if we have the opportunity to.
And there is another provision, I don't know, remember what percent, you have to have 26% of the property owners
We
for
got
the
44
petition.
now.
44, so, because I mean, that's where, so if you change the course, then you'd have to make sure you still have a valid petition, but I think in this case.
And I think if we put these two options out, it would eliminate another preliminary hearing, and that could be brought up at the final hearing, whether we feel that it's in need or justifiable or what have you, but
Right.
I don't think it would complicate the project or the situation now. I mean, we should deal with probably what's at hand and what we can take care of.
Right. So how it goes, if we go forward, they appoint viewers and they tell me to prepare the detailed plans, and that's we all got pretty much that way. That says, take me to the point where we could almost bid. And then we have another hearing. The board can direct the engineer or the viewer to change the plan. What he's trying to do is, we can save a step, because we already know enough to do what Gary wants.
Right, and I mean, that's really the benefit of having these things, so that we can address some of these things for that purpose. I mean, we're so close that if we can do something, I think we should when we have the opportunity.
Does everybody in this room think we need no more conveyance, no more culverts across County Road 20? 336s are enough. Okay, so that is the kicker right there. I mean, if we can agree on that,
Yeah.
then we're okay.
I think that we're gonna stop the questions right now. Myron wants to read a love letter from the Department of Natural Resources.
I
part
don't
of our
want to, but at
statutory
least it's a
process.
short one. So I got 2 advisory reports required under statute. One is from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and one is a real long one from the Board of Water and Soil Resources, which I don't have to read. So I have to read the shortest one, which is from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Dear Red Lake, dear Watershed District Managers, on behalf of the Commission and the Department of Natural Resources, I offer the following comments on the preliminary report for the above cited project in accordance to Minnesota Statute Section 103E255. The preliminary engineer's report appears to be an acceptable plan. However, we ask for consideration of the following recommendations. A soil survey is not needed. DNR recommends that the final engineer's report address the following comments. Please consult with the West Polk SWCD WACA administrator and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on the need for wetland delineation report in the project vicinity. This is a requirement on all projects that may impact wetlands. Using the National Wetland Inventory for identification of wetlands is a good tool to use for the preliminary or cursory review of the wetlands, which should not be used as a final documentation on determining wetlands. A notice of decision on the document by the West Polk SWCD prior to commencement of the project. Number 2 is please consult the State Historical Preservation Office, which is SHPO, to ensure that no archaeological sites are along the alignment of the drainage system or near the Grand Marais Creek. Documentation from SHPO should be received and kept on file for this project. Based on past projects in the Grand Marais general area, there is potential for cultural resource concerns. Describe whether the system will have continuous flow. If it does, this can affect channel stability, and we would then recommend that the final report include considerations such as the use of 2-stage ditch design and low-flow channel. Low-flow channel mimics natural stream design and prevents sedimentation buildup within the system. Trade-offs are they require additional right-of-way and reduced maintenance needs. DNR recommends more information on the final engineer's report on sediment erosion control measures or special design consideration mentioned in section 17 of the preliminary engineer's report for the outlet of Grand Marais Creek. And that's specifically the outlet that Jerry was talking about that daylight's in. DNR wants to make sure that with the flow that there's no erosion on the Grand Marais after it crosses that crossing. So kind of some of your concerns are addressed by DNR, so they do want to see that addressed so that there's armoring or protection so no erosion occurs. To prevent wildlife entanglement and webbing, DNR recommends using wildlife-friendly erosion control. And then they go on to state what statutes they agree with on that. Hydromulch products frequently contain plastic fibers to aid in the matrix strength. This loose fibers resuspend and make their way into the water bodies. DNR recommends utilizing cellulose-based hydromulch. Products containing plastic, polypropylene, fiber additives should be avoided. Say that real quick. Additionally, the dye mulching green is an industrial colorant used in some mulch, hydromulch, presented, well, I wish I wouldn't say this, an ecotoxicity concern for aquatic species for potential for bioaccumulation in insects, amphibians, and fish. DNR recommends use of mulching green also be avoided. They could have just said that. But DNR recommends that the seed mixtures incorporate perennial flowers or forbs as for pollinator friendly. You can see the native seed, state seed mixes in the Prairie Park Van Eco region on the Board of Saltwater Sources website. If there's any changes or work in public waters, the Red Lake Watershed District may need a public waters work permit, and any dewatering may need a water appropriations permit. If permits are required, please coordinate with the final engineer's report with DNR area hydrologist Stephanie Grant to ensure the project is permittable. We look forward to continuing working with the Red Lake Watershed District on this and other projects. Thank you for your consideration. Teresa Ebenga, EWR Assistant Regional Manager.
Anybody want Myra to read that again?
No. I'll hand it to you. It is in the packets too. So the Bowser report, which I didn't read, is in your packet.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to close the hearing. Okay, at this time, I close the hearing on this project.